Hello, everybody. It's Marianne Bailey with the Hip Senior Podcast, Book Edition. Today, I am on with Pam Ostrowski. She is the author of It's Not That Simple, Helping Families Navigate the Alzheimer's Journey. Pam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Marianne. I really appreciate it.
Oh, we're glad to have you here. Pam, tell everybody a little bit about you and what made you write It's Not That Simple.
Basically, I was like everybody else, full-time job, didn't have any children or was just doing my thing like most adult children. And I started to see that my parents were aging and having issues. My dad had a couple of knee replacements. My mom wasn't used to driving. She had a car accident. I was 3,000 miles away. So what I learned was that they needed help. And as the youngest and the only girl, I felt like my role was to be near them. So I moved back to where they were in order to help with mom and dad. And the challenge is that mom ended up, I was the first person to notice this, is she was showing anxiety, unreasonable anxiety. And so I started watching her and she really started to I started noticing signs of dementia. So I basically packed them up and moved them back I ended up moving away again because they seemed stable. Then I saw the behaviors of mom. And so I moved them out here to Phoenix. And the bottom line is that disease progressed for 14 years. So had dementia undiagnosed as far as what particular type of dementia it was. But she had then another 7, 8 years with Alzheimer's. And so as a result, she lost her ability to speak and her ability to walk. And then my dad was really having a difficulty coping. They'd been married for decades and he loved her more than anything. And so it was really hard to navigate that journey. And I thought at the time, geez, wouldn't it be nice if there was a caregiving guide? And at that time, back in the early 2000s, there really wasn't a lot of content except for the 36-hour day. And so I wrote It's Not That Simple, Helping Families Navigate the Alzheimer's Journey, because I've had literally hundreds of conversations with adult children who are saying they're getting older. How do you know? What type of symptoms do you see? And what do you do for care options? And then as this disease progresses, how do you communicate with them? How do you engage? How do you get them to do things? How do you persuade them to take action that you desire versus undesirable behaviors? So all of those things are in my book. And it's not just for Alzheimer's, although I labeled it that because I felt it was true to my story because my mom had Alzheimer's, and Alzheimer's is different than, say, Lewy body dementia or vascular dementia. But my dad had vascular dementia the last couple of years of his life. So I have experience in both of those personally. So that's who I am. And I was able to start my own company and have flexibility with the things like doctor's appointments and taking notes and checking in with them and then monitoring the care they got in their care communities. So I had that flexibility. So my passion now is to communicate with adult children about the frustration, about trying to balance career with caregiving.
So, is that your target market for this book? Is it adult caregivers?
It's adult children of those with dementia in particular, but also in a broader sense, anybody who's an adult child who's working and has an aging loved one who's struggling with the caregiving role. Much of the dementia journey plays to those services and those needs as well. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know how somebody with a really strict work schedule and say they're an only child gets all that done.
Yeah. And what's really interesting, especially about dementia, is that usually, if you had three siblings, I'll just use that as my example, usually the other two don't participate. You pretty much have one person who's probably healthcare power of attorney as well as durable power of attorney, and they make all the decisions in collaboration, potentially. If there's a spouse, like with my dad, he and I would make decisions regarding my mom. But it's interesting and gets very complicated if there are siblings who everybody wants to participate. And that's another thing that I do in my coaching business is I work with people to help everybody see, let's put this problem in front of us and not between us. Let's focus on the best care for your loved one and not about what each of you feels what you would prefer. And that's a real challenge. If you do, it's actually better to have just one person than it is to have a bunch of people who want to be involved.
They have different opinions and
You got
arguments
it.
and the whole family dynamic. Of
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
All right, Pam. So they read your book, they set it down. They could only have one thought about your book. What do you hope that one thought would be?
I would say, thank goodness I'm not alone. There's somebody else who's been through this whole thing. And now I know what the entire journey looks like, although it will be unique to your individual situation. But now I know what to prepare for. I know what questions to ask. I know I understand the diseases a little bit better. I understand what the care options are. So basically, giving them a guide, a caregiving guide that they can refer back to, including conversation tips and possible wording that they can use when talking with other people or siblings. So that's really what I want them to take away is that they're not alone and that there's guidebooks out there that can help them, as well as, for instance, giving me a call, reaching out to me to walk through some of their issues.
All right. Pam Ostrowski, the author of It's Not That Simple, helping families navigate the Alzheimer's journey. Thank you so much for writing your book and for sharing your information here on the Hip Senior Books.
Thank you so much, Marianne. It was a pleasure. Have a great day. Thanks, you too.